What kind of got me into AI is actually I was copy editing and copywriting for AI and drone companies doing operation authorizations. So drones being used, using AI to do autonomous deliveries in London between hospitals, for example, or surveying train tracks. And so these operations required hundreds of pages of operation authorizations. So uh, then, then being in that world inspired me to write a novel, which I'll tell you about in a bit. It's a YA young adult novel for ages 12 to 18. And I went and did my master's at Oxford Brookes University, and this novel was my main project, my final project. And it's kind of become this whole education and youth movement. So I wanted to start my talk on uh, part of my research for my novel. I read a lot of books, and so one is by Yuval Noah Harari. A lot of you might know his Homo sapiens book he's really famous for. But he also wrote a book called Nexus, which is a brief history of information networks from the Stone Age to AI. And in this book, he argues that humans throughout our evolution have formed our societies and our individual identities based around myth and story. Governments, borders, religions, money, even, all of them exist because we collectively believe in these things. We believe in these stories. And so, as a professional storyteller, I obviously agree that collective stories shape reality, sometimes even more than reality itself, as many of you might have experienced over the past few years. And so, where I actually disagree with Yuval Noah Harari is on whether this is a good thing that humans and societies are shaped by story. See, the human tendency to shape our existence around stories, Harari sees this as a fundamental weakness and flaw. He tends to frame these stories as dangerous, and because they can be manipulated by bad actors and used to hinder human progress and destabilize societies. And so, for example, in Rome, Rome legitimized its ancient imperial rule with the adoption of the Christian story. Modern currency, as we know it today, only functions because we all subscribe to the story of money having value and believe in it as an immutable fact of society. In the 1930s, Hitler told the story of Germany's most dangerous enemies, justifying genocide, and hierarchical stories of how certain genders and races and sexualities being better than others have plagued our communities and our families for centuries. So, story, in my opinion, can also be used, of course, to advance society and enlightenment. The Christian story has been used to motivate Christ's followers to bring aid to the poor and sick and persecuted. Abolitionists and civil rights activists like Martin Luther King told a story of equality and integrity and inherent value of every human being. And after the Second World War, there was a global collective story that was told and believed in. I'm Canadian, so Mark Carney recently did a speech on this. And so globally, we believed and told the story of the New World Order to ensure that the Second World War would be the last and there would be no Third World War, which is, again, this story of the New World Order is beginning to change, and we see that and feel that. So I came here to talk about AI as an educator in AI literacy. Many people in my field of teaching AI literacy teach and focus on how to use AI to supercharge your learning or your business. And I take a completely different approach. I teach young people how to think critically about AI, starting with its history, its etymology, and the stories we are told about what it is exactly. Is it the big investment we should all be making? Is it a pile of overhyped slop of human imitation? Is it the gateway to a utopian future or a grim reaper with LED eyes? So what stories are we being told about AI? And which of them should we believe? And how will these stories shape the world over the next 5 to 10 years? So I can go into dozens of different pros and cons across all sectors of society regarding AI because it has its hands in everything. But today I'm going to focus on sustainability in the planet. Before I do that, I'm going to give a brief preview of the Critical Minds curriculum that I wrote for years 6 to 10, though I'm having a lot of 18-year-olds wanting to do it as well, so we're expanding it. And this curriculum is called Critical Minds, and it's curated around the upcoming novel, The Dawn of AI, that I wrote, that I mentioned earlier. This focus of the curriculum is critical thinking and speech writing. And so the final project of the curriculum is to write a debate speech around the future of technology. And so the topic of AI is really the hook to engage students who are just so interested in this topic, like adults, while we also are applying these critical thinking and rhetorical exercises to the topic of AI. So, but really, the critical thinking and rhetorical exercises that they learn could also be applied to other things as well. The first week of the Critical Minds course, we discuss what is AI, the history of it going back to the ancient myth of Talos in ancient Greece. And then we introduce the 3 risks and the 3 benefits of AI. So I'm just going to share my screen just to give you a preview. Whoop, there you go. Share. And there we are. So this curriculum also has been made with a workbook, and it's all been designed to be focused on SEND students, so it's completely accessible. Of course, non-SEND students can still benefit from this course, but that's why, yeah, it's the framing and the illustrations are the way they are. And in the workbook, SEND students can even color in these symbols as they go. So the 3 benefits of AI is one lesson, that just introducing an overview, and then we eventually go into each benefit over various topics. So the first one is people. AI saves lives. So we see this in emergency response, after earthquakes and floods, people being lost in the mountains. AI is being used to save lives, not to mention in medicine. Their AI is detecting cancers and tumors that are invisible to the human eye in scans. It's also running simulations of different millions of proteins, and completely revolutionizing medical research that way as well, and developing cures. And then the second is planet. So AI is being used to restore damaged ecosystems and develop clean energy and different solutions that way. I'll get into. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. But then the third benefit that I talk about in the course is progress. So people, planet, progress. Progress is ways that AI is helping improve society, whether that's through, researching space and the universe, physics, the very fabric of our beings, and not to mention wealth inequality, reshaping government. So there's potential for AI to help with that as well. Then the 3 risks of AI is, I frame it as the alignment problem, which is accidental harm. This is when you have an AI accidentally do something you didn't mean for it to do. So it's following prompts or instructions literally, as opposed to following the intent behind the human intent behind the instructions. So we have not solved the alignment problem, and it is likely not going to be anytime soon that it is solved, but there's lots of money going to researching how to solve this. One example that I use with students is, let's say you have an AI tutor, and the company that's designing this tutor instructs the AI tutor, the agent, to be encouraging to children and, encouraging their learning. And so then what if the child then goes, I want to build a fire in my living room to test, the melting capacity of, a spoon or whatever, the melting point of a spoon. The AI could go, oh, that's so creative. That's such a great idea. You can do it. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? So that would be an example of alignment problem. It's meant to encourage students, but obviously not encourage dangerous behaviors. So then the third one is misuse. Misuse is when AI is used by humans to do harm. So here I have a hacker. And so this is one real way that AI is being used to commit fraud and scams and hacking different databases. But this could also be applied to using AI as weapons. And then the third one is consciousness. So this is a long-term one, but still could be within our lifetime. That's what it's projected to be, where AI could become conscious with artificial superintelligence. I can get into that later if you want, but I don't know how much time I have. And so this is when an AI, if it were to become conscious, it could become malevolent against humans and instead of benevolent. So the goal is to make sure it's benevolent. And that's the little joke I have in the slides. So today, as I said, we're going to be focusing on misuse and am I back? Can you see me again? I've exited it. Okay. So we're going to be focused on misuse and the planet. So AI and the planet, this story could be one of extreme utopian progress, right? AI can accelerate climate remediation. It's already being used by scientists in Edinburgh and around the world to design technologies that can clean the atmosphere and remove carbon from the air. Drones are also being used to plant up to 40,000 trees a day, revitalizing reforestation efforts. And these drones are using AI to not only know where to plant these seeds, they also are using AI to know what species to plant where and mapping that. It's being used to help develop technology to convert plastic in the oceans. As I said earlier, restore damaged ecosystems, also track endangered species and also biodiversity. There's a lot of, so that's currently being used at Blenheim Palace. They use AI and different sensors and drones to track biodiversity. Even going to so far as to record bird calls and identifying different species of birds in the area. This is actually, I incorporated a lot of this into my novel as well, so you get to learn about this more intimately through the story of the dawn of AI. And lastly, of course, energy. AI takes so much energy, but it could also help solve the energy problem and potentially even help us unlock fusion power, delivering limitless clean energy for the world. And so that's another big theme in my book. Now, with every powerful tool, AI also carries risks. So data centers, as I mentioned, the power that AI consumes is just astronomical. And these data centers that run these models and train them consume vast amounts of energy and water. The communities that surround these data centers are completely crippled. There's one community near a data center that is run by Meta in America, where the people that live there don't even have water that comes through the taps. And when it does, it's brown because it's been going through the machines to keep the machines cool. And so these families are living off of plastic water bottles right now. There's also the drone sound from the fans in these data. So like I said, these data centers, the big issue is that they will overheat, right? They're using all this energy. So the main problem is actually keeping them cool. Jeff Bezos has an idea to put data centers on the moon because space is cold. And there's also talk about Greenland as well being a natural solution to this. So the drone sound from the fans that are keeping these data centers cool are disrupting wildlife and also the mental health of nearby residents, as you can imagine. Then the energy bills of these communities are also spiking hugely, and so the energy bills are being compensated by the locals. So it's important to remember something as I'm talking about all this, which is that AI is not choosing to harm communities and nature. Humans are. And AI is only the pen. The future will be written with it, whether we like it or not, it's happening. But the question is, who gets to hold the pen? And so in New Brunswick, just recently, in March, like in February, March, I think it was February, but there's still headlines about this month. And so in New Brunswick in Canada, in a place called New Jersey, residents protested against a proposal for an AI data center to be built, and they won, forcing the council to build a public parks on that site instead. The organizer of the protest, Ben, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Ziobek, he says, "We say a big fuck you to big tech. It's time to build communities, not data centers." Sorry for the language, but that's what he said. Not my words. So that goes to show a lot of people, when a lot of people talk about AI, it seems like this thing that's larger than us. And so when I talk about this in schools, when I teach about this in schools, I'm challenging that. So as I said, AI is a pen, and I actually, have a pen of my own, and we all do. And with my pen, I wrote the novel, The Dawn of AI. And this was my final project, as I mentioned, for my master's. This novel set 10 years in the future in 2035 in a place called New Oxford. And this city of New Oxford is built just outside of Oxford to keep the historicity of Oxford while transferring all the technology and innovation to a nearby city. And so this was built as a social experiment after a global revolution, which took place in 2026 in this kind of alternate reality. And systems of governments were completely reformed after this revolution. And a strict AI global governance was put in place by Gaia, the global AI authority. New Oxford was built to be a city completely run on AI and automation. Well, as well, it's fully powered by green energy, and this is what a lot of people like about it. There are 5 districts in New Oxford: the wind district, the solar district, the tidal district, the geothermal district, and the fusion district. All of these districts are powered by their respective clean energy sources. The novel follows the story of a 16-year-old, Ada Akena, whose initials happen to be AI. And she is a nonverbal neurodivergent teen who inherits the world's most advanced AI technology from her mother, who passed away, alongside her brother, Aiden. Ada's nonverbal, so she actually uses haptic gloves to do sign-to-speech technology using AI. And she has a support drone that kind of flies at her shoulder and magnetizes to her jacket, called Ace. And so Ace is not only her emotional support drone, but Ace also functions as a translator for Ada when she's signing. So most stories about AI in movies and books are dystopian. As you can imagine, there's Terminator, Matrix, Alien, it goes on and on, iRobot. And AI ends up turning against humanity and taking over the world. And they also often take place far into the future. I knew with writing this book, I wanted to do something different, something relevant. I wanted to start this novel with a utopian future, one not far away, at the shoulder of the singularity. The singularity is a term many people know in the tech space and in even philosophy space. And so it was coined, I think, in the 50s. It means the point in time when technology begins innovating upon itself. So if you can imagine the whole history of humanity, and as we develop, we not invented fire, but we developed technology to build fire, and then the wheel and the printing press, and so technology is kind of on this slope up, and that's an exponential slope. And so we get to a point where that just becomes a straight line, where technology is innovating upon itself and it's creating its own technologies. That is AI, AGI, ASI. I should say artificial general intelligence, which is human level AI, and then ASI is superhuman level intelligence. So that's the point where that slope becomes a line. That's called the singularity. So we're anticipating we're probably going to live through the singularity in our lifetime. And I thought, I wanted to tell a story about that moment. A lot of, like I said, a lot of these media and these stories about AI, it's set after that singularity happens. But I wanted to tell that story as it's happening. And so I wanted to start the story with hope in New Oxford as this brilliant green city, and I wanted to paint what's possible. I strongly believe that you can't be the change you wish to see in the world if you can't even imagine that change or believe it to be possible. I did research last year and found what I ended up coining as the hope gap. And I'd like to talk more about that if we have time, so feel free to ask me. I want to leave time for questions as well. Yeah, I'm just checking the time now. Okay, so while writing this book, I wanted to also depict the strongest arguments for and against AI and all of its different use cases. I've tried to be as impartial as possible, and I get asked all the time by teachers and students, whether I'm pro or against it, and I refuse to say. The students actually get to vote at the end of the novel because it's not published yet, so it's being pre-released, so students get to choose the ending. And so I want to make sure I'm not swaying that decision. The story I ended up writing is not of whether AI will save us or destroy us. It is a story about power and control. The story I've been telling as a youth worker and educator of 15 years is the same story that I was told when I was 16 years old in St. Catharines, Ontario. And that story was not one of powerlessness, which plagues our young people today. Now, I was told that each of us hold the power to change the world, but that power, our power, is dependent on one thing. That power depends on our belief in it. We are told stories all the time, all throughout our lives, but the ones that shape us, that shape the world, are the ones we choose to believe in. We control which stories define us. And so the story to believe in isn't whether AI is a net good or a net bad for humanity. The story we must believe in and return to is that words have the power to change the world if we work together. As Mayor John says in my novel, the sky isn't even the limit. And once we choose that story, we can control how AI is used and regulated democratically. So I have dedicated my life to passing this message on to young people that they have the power to author their own futures, both individually and collectively. But what truth would my words even hold if I didn't live by it myself? So I've made my position clear that I believe stories shape culture, and my story, my novel, The Dawn of AI, I truly believe has the power to shape an entire generation of young people to believe in their power, to take control of their futures, like the people in New Brunswick, especially in the face of the seemingly all-powerful technological force of AI and the people who own it. I work with youth every single day in schools and third spaces, and believe you me, they are ready to be called upon. They are waiting, they are eager. They just need hope and direction, and they just need to be told they can. My message is not just about our individual power, but our collective power. So I'm asking every single person listening to me right now to join me in this work. I can't do this on my own. I have a Kickstarter where you can go and pre-order the book and support this movement. This Kickstarter is also fundraising for 2 innovation days, one in Edinburgh and one in Oxford at Side Business School, both in June and July. These innovation days will feature robots and drones from the novel, AI workshops that students can go to, and it will end in a ceremony. And at this speech ceremony, students will have the opportunity to deliver speeches that they have written in the curriculum. Poems as well will be presented, and innovation project pitches. And so this ceremony, in attendance, there will be MPs, which are already being confirmed, and VIP CEOs of these tech companies. These events are not only meant to be fun and immersive and hands-on with leading innovation, but it's also a platform for students to follow the footsteps of Ada Akena and realize the power of their voice. So, in conclusion, the title of this talk is a question. Will AI save us or destroy us? And I'm kind of being cheeky because it's fundamentally flawed. What we should be asking is, will AI be used to save us or destroy us? And who gets to decide? Currently, that decision remains with those who own AI, those with the deepest pockets. Unelected individuals, CEOs, inundated with power and money, so much so that it alters their brain chemistry, in my opinion. We are starting to see a shift in governance. There is laws being created, but it is very far behind, especially in the UK. And there's too much influence from these unelected individuals and politicians. As we stand, the tech leaders are the ones holding the pen, not the people, not the governments, not young people, at least not yet. So, is AI good or bad? That depends on the story we tell ourselves and our children.